In this episode of the Futures Thinking podcast, I'm talking with Simon Caspersen of SPACE10, who is its co-founder and communication director. SPACE10 is a Copenhagen-based research and design studio, which mission is to create better everyday life for people and the planet. Simon and I are talking about the future, of course, if it can be designed, explored or advanced, how they do it at SPACE10, what kind of methods, tools they use to approach future, whether there's one future or maybe more. We are also wondering where is the ideal city and if the futurist is not just another name for a designer. You are listening to the Futures Thinking podcast, where we are sharing live conversations with people of business, design, arts, culture, science and nature who are shaping our futures today. I'm your host, Agata Bisping. Simon, thank you for having you here and thank you for accepting my invitation. And we've met 4 years ago during the Element Urban Talks conference that was held in Poland. And during my preparation for the interview, I was coming back to the footage that we made that time. And I listened to the interview with you in which you quoted William Gibson, who is a speculative fiction writer. And you said with his words that future is already here. It is just not evenly distributed. And taking into consideration what you do as SPACE10, meaning reinventing the future or bringing new future perspectives for the people, I just can't help but wonder, why are you doing this since the future is already here? And what is exactly that you do at SPACE10?
Yeah, great to see you again, first of all, Agatha. It was such a lovely conference and really nice meeting you. SPACE10 is a research and design laboratory. Here we're really looking to explore how we can create a better everyday life for both people and the planet. We are set up together with IKEA, a relatively successful Swedish furniture company, but we work independently. So we are looking at this IKEA vision of creating a better everyday life for people and looking at how we can do that in new ways that IKEA is not looking into today. So really exploring what could the future concept of IKEA be when we just look at the vision. So not really focusing on the big blue box in the potato fields, but more what could the IKEA of tomorrow become. And I think in terms of the William Gibson quote on the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. I think a lot of the way that we work at SPACE10 is also to look at what is actually going on in the world. So it's not to say that the future is in any way defined, but we can see that, for instance, when we are talking about the climate crisis, that some people are already severely hit. Millions of people are already migrating due to the climate crisis. And in that way, you can say it's also a little bit of example of what's coming. On the more positive note, however, is also that we can see that there are already now, let's say, you could say new clean energy solutions that are already there, implemented, working, that we can also distribute further. So I think the quote around the future is already here. It's not just evenly distributed. It's not that the future is already defined, but more we can see the weak signal of what is coming. And it's really up to us today to choose what kind of futures do we want to pursue?
So if you decide or if you work on the kind of futures you want to pursue, you enter some design innovation process, and you come into into a process or a product or an idea that you want to develop. And how do you do that at SPACE10? Do you have one approach that is applicable to all the problems, or is it problem-dependent method. How do you do that at SPACE10?
Innovation is messy, and I wish that there was like a formula that we could just go through every time. I think that no models work, but some are useful, and the way we go about it at SPACE10 is always looking at where is it we would like to go. What is the future that we dream of? What is the grand vision? And then try to back engineer our way back to where we are today. So let's say, over 1 billion people don't have access to reliable energy, as an example. And imagine what electricity and energy means for humankind. It's sort of crucial for education, for health, for equality between genders, for income, for everything. So energy is really sort of the fundamental step for people to really reach their full potential. Like that's the starting point of everything. So if over 1 billion people don't have access to electricity, there's sort of a big challenge here. And that's really the way that we work at SPACE10. We're always looking at the big shifts that's going to impact most of us. So whether that's societal shifts, environmental shifts, or technological shifts, what are the big major trends that's going to impact all of us, and how can we contribute to that? So with the example of electricity, for instance, I am for sure no expert in electricity, grid connectivity, in solar panels or anything like that. So that means we know, okay, we would like to ensure that every human being has access to electricity. And then we say, okay, that's the vision. And then we need to figure out how do we get there. And then we work a little bit like you could say, Ocean's 11, if you know that movie, where we then sort of assemble the team that we need to actually get there. We know where we're heading. Now we just need the team that can get us there. And that's also why SPACE10 is actually quite a small team. Like we are 25 people in total. But that's because we basically tailor make and assemble the team needed for each project, which means that instead of building up all the capacities and capabilities in-house in the organization, we rather pull in the people we need on a specific project. So we have a very distributed approach actually to how we do our work.
So can this method of your working on a problem be called oceaning, or 11 oceanings as a way of solving problems and constituting a team?
Sure, let's call it that. We haven't named it yet, but I like it.
Okay. While I was preparing, obviously, for this interview, I also came across the interview with Michael Christopher, and he was interviewed by the MIT, and he said that if you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room, which is a quote by Confucius, but Michael used it in reference to the team, and you were already mentioning that you are a small collective of innovative people, but you don't need to know yourself everything on a given topic or issue you are working at. How do you find people that are useful for the project and at the same time willing to share their knowledge and their experience? Because there are some people that know much but are not willing to share or are not willing to collaborate. So how do you onboard people that are willing to share the knowledge, give solution, and also express themselves and exhibit themselves a little bit intellectually? How do you make it successful?
The way we go about it is basically that SPACE10 and IKEA are value driven from the get-go. Like we deeply believe that if we are able to create a better everyday life, then most likely the second step is also that there is a business opportunity there. But first things first, when you are value driven and when you are looking to improve the life of people, then what we're looking for is people who share the same values as we do, people who are working in the space that we want to explore, and then basically empower them to move faster than they would be in their current setup. So for us, it's very much about empowering the bright people to get to the solution faster.
Do you have any methods to do that? Because, I imagine that this is really a broad definition of what you do. You want to make our lives better. Okay, but where do you start? And if you say that you share the same values and people are open to do that, that's also really nice to hear. But how can you do that precisely? Does it involve any testing, any prior solution giving, any other research that makes you think, okay, this is a perfect match. This is someone that we need to work with, that can share his knowledge, that we can uplift him also, that we can make that person grow.
Yeah, I think it's different on whether we're looking for someone to either be working more permanently at SPACE10, whether it's a project hire that would also sit in our office, or whether it's you could say a studio, freelancers, or a company that we collaborate with. There's a different process for each, but often the way we go about it is that we do very exploratory projects, as well as projects that are really about developing solutions that can scale. And often we go on first dates with people through these more short sprints of exploratory or speculative projects, where we get a feeling of how is it to work with this person. We also have a residency program where we basically collaborate with universities like Strelka in Moscow, Howard, MIT, Institute of Advanced Architecture. Some of the institutions where there are some interesting topics and some great and bright talents, where we have basically invite students in to come and work with us. And that's, of course, not only you don't have to apply to one of these very expensive universities to get a residency at SPACE10. We also have open calls. There's one open right now where we are exploring water and a safe water future. So I wish that we just had, again, a model that we could just use every time, but it's very much also about a vibe. It's about values. And then, of course, people have to be great at what they do. But we don't have one of these crazy screening programs like you see in some major companies where the applicant is served soup, and if they then salt it before they have tasted it, then they're sent home because
that implies something.
That's sort of a bad sign of character. we don't have these sort of tricks. It's very much is there an energy to create something? We're very action oriented, and we're all here to do the best work of our life. So it's really much around, okay, does this work in terms of energy? And then, of course, sometimes there are also partners that are just very good at engineering or something where we are not working closely with them to develop the concept but where we need something done. And there we often work with great companies with a great track record.
Yeah, this is, I think this is something also related with creativity and innovation, that you don't actually need to see certain processes structured. You just need to feel them. You just need to have that gut feeling, and you need to have the vibe that is unexplicable in a way. You just know it once this is in a process. So this is also double hard for people that would approach you from companies to ask for innovation, for help in the process, that they would ask, okay, and how does it work? What will I get? How will you proceed? How will you process? There are so many detailed questions that demand detailed answers, and your answer is, okay, let's wait. Let's see what happens. Let it flow. And this is really, really hard. And this goes to another question. What is the most difficult of your creative and future thinking innovation process? What you find is the most distracting, difficult, and hard for your team?
I think if we're talking about innovation, it's by default complicated and messy. And I think to your point around the method again, I think if we knew what the solution was already, or if the solution was obvious, then we would already be doing it. The whole reason why we are in this game is really to explore a new perspective. And that means it's very easy to sort of, when we have been through the process, to create like a very linear line from A to B, to say this was the process when we look backwards. But reality is that the process is completely messy, and you have to sort of really thrive in that uncertainty. Really thrive in trying to find patterns in the chaos, and ensure that your organization is not sort of built to last, but to constantly evolve. So I think the hardest parts of the process is not so much roadblocks or things that don't go according to plan, because that's the factory setting of what we do. I think what personally frustrates me the most is speed. Like, you want to get things out there in the world, but if you are at the same time trying to tackle some really hairy, complicated challenges, then there's a lot of work to be done to go from idea to implementation. And I really like that things goes fast. So I think for me personally, that is what I struggle with the most.
That you would like things to be faster than they are?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. It's hard to be on this side that says good things must come to you in time, and that patience pays, and that you need to test the solutions, that you need to have them aside for a while, just to approach them again and say, okay, this may not work, or this may work differently. Last time I was talking to Zuzanna Skalska, and she said something about the exploration, about the change, about the hardship, that this is a process from trauma to challenge, and that this is the innovation, the change that is behind that. When you grasp this process from trauma to challenge, and when you will face the challenge and say, okay, I'm ready, then you have succeeded, and then you have overcome the hardships, because no matter what the solution actually is, you've been managed to cross the Rubicon, and you find yourself on the other side of the innovation. And while exploring your website, I have found also another quotation by Ed Camille that said, the future is not a destination, it is a direction. And I would risk saying that the future is just a tool to solve today's problems. Let me know your thoughts on that.
I can buy into that as well. However, I think we can't really wait for the future for the solutions. So I think the present is the tool to solve today's challenges, or whatever the altered quote is. I mean, we have just entered the most important decade for humankind. We are in the middle of a climate crisis, and the projections are looking really, really bad. And this is nothing new. We knew this was coming. The scientists have been telling us for decades, and we have waited for the future to solve it, and we're still waiting for the future to solve it. So I don't know I don't remember the exact words of your quote, but I would just exchange future with present.
Yeah, my quote was that the future is only a tool to solve today's problems. And I would say that if you project what the future may be, you may backcast and say, okay, so what we need to do today to solve that problems. And they are not like, like a fairy tale takes out the rabbit of a cylinder and says, okay, this may happen, because the future is based on today's facts and on a speculation how they may dissolve in the future. And knowing that, you can simply backcast and predict, okay, if we knew that the climate is going to collapse because of our actions, maybe it's a better way to invest in the active restoration of the nature rather than inventing how to invade Mars. And this is actually something that strikes me hard, that seeing what Elon Musk is doing, it is innovative, it is exhilarating, it is
for sure
astonishing. But then again, on the other side, I'm just asking myself, okay, if I had that much money, if I would be in such innovative industry, would I care to go to Mars? I mean, this is just, like a dream being a reality, and it's not an actual solution to today's problems, because we need to today solve the climate issue here on Earth and not on Mars, which is just like an abstract idea.
Yeah, no, for sure. I completely agree with that. Mars seems like a horrible environment. I think it's a silly idea of going to Mars. We have quite a wonderful planet. I would much rather live on a blue-green planet rather than something that is really hostile towards humans.
Yeah, that was the general remark. But do you think that such innovation labs as yours can get interest of such people that are, IKEA, and the idea behind it are just great? I mean, there's nothing that you can really stick to and say, okay, that doesn't work. I mean, this is really a company and your job that really brings attention and is uplifting, in a sense that you are really thinking of the future, and that you really care about how the solution may work in the future for people. And wouldn't it be great to organize a coaching sessions or maybe some tutorials for people that have money and resources, to stick to the fact that maybe let's focus on what we can do today for Earth rather than exploring Mars or any other, outrageous ideas. And on the other hand, we need to have visionaries. We need to have people that would think above the line and something that crosses. Otherwise, we would not be innovative at all. I'm just asking your opinion about that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the whole Mars topic is also, besides an ego thing, it's also I also deeply believe that the one who envisioned the future are part of shaping it. And that means that a lot of the inventions and innovation that we see from grown-ups sparked from sci-fi and 80s movies. So I think, Back to the Future movie, for instance, I think basically all of those speculative gadgets and items have since been invented by someone, or at least tried invented. So I think it's important what kind of visions we put out there in the world. Like that's absolutely fundamental, and that's also why SPACE10. We are not just sharing our work with IKEA. We put it out there openly, and anyone interested can then actually go in and see if there's something that can inspire them. If we are talking about what needs to be done, then IKEA is too little of a company to accomplish that alone. It's going to be like a collective effort, because what we're facing are structural challenges. So I love your idea of SPACE10 setting up a mentorship for Elon Musk, but I don't think that we should bet our future life on that. However, I am really pleased to see that SPACE10 as a setup has inspired a lot of other big corporations. So besides, you could say, the actual implementation of what we do through IKEA and the scale IKEA has, we can also just see that the ideas and the setup inspire other companies to pursue some of the same, which is just incredible, because that, our ideas needs to be portable.
Yeah. My other question is that when I look at what you do and when I read about your job, and obviously I've been through a lot of interviews and movies about the SPACE10 and videos, it is such a great fun. I mean, it doesn't look like work at all. You experiment, you are free of fault. I mean, whatever you do, it is a solution. It is a valuable outcome. You doesn't get to cut your pay off because you've made a mistake. The mistake is just another step forward for another exploration, for another innovation, for another option. And you produce the sparks of enlightenment, of awe, and this is something like the big aha moments or the big wow. And how do you make that work for everyday citizen? I mean, apart from some of your work is being visible in IKEA and some is being taken by the other companies, as you have said. But how do you implement, for example, the urban village? It is the idea, a great idea of a village that is sustainable, that is self. How do you say this?
Self-sustainable or circular.
Oh. Yeah, and how do you make that work, and how do you convince people that it's worth building such village, and last but not least, living in there?
I think the living part, to get people to move in there, that's the easy part, because if what Urban Village is really striving towards is to create affordable, livable, and sustainable homes. All of those three elements together. And right now we have an affordable housing crisis. We have a climate crisis, and we are seeing increased loneliness and depression in our cities. So
that's the easiest part.
The habitants are there. But then you touch upon something. How the heck do we then implement it? Because, of course, it's easy to build one urban village. But what we're looking at is a system for scale. So how can we create affordable, livable, and sustainable homes for the many? SPACE10, we can't tinker around with creating a housing model for 100 residents. We need to look at scale. Like, the only way that we can really make it truly affordable is by scale, a modular approach to architecture. And that is for sure not easy, and also why that there's not urban villages around the world today, even though it was a vision that was presented 1.5 years ago. We're still working on how do we actually create that scale, and there are so many elements to that. And again, we depend on a lot of experts from a lot of different industries to make that happen. So to your first point around the work of SPACE10 just seems like fun and games. I'm really happy you perceive it that way. That means that I, at least as communications director, have done a good job in terms of making everything we do seem playful, which is indeed important.
Well done.
No, but I mean, leveraged by a great team. I am not the one bringing our projects to life, but that is for sure a key focus for us. I think that optimism is the ingredient to really do radical things. It's so easy to dwell on the challenges, and I think that the future needs to be fun and optimistic and bright, to really motivate us to actually build it. But behind the curtains, there are, of course, also a lot of challenges and complex issues, like, for instance, introducing affordable, sustainable, and livable home at scale, because the housing industry is for sure not a new industry, and at the moment, construction is the least digitized industry after hunting. So there's a lot of room for innovation in that space, and we need to figure out how do we do it in the best way possible.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that future should be optimistic, because what we do at Green Hat Innovation is we are driving scenarios, we are writing scenarios, and we were wondering whether we should write the scenarios in an utopian way, or we should also add the dystopian ways. And we figured that no, the dystopia is already here. We are facing the challenges, we do the hardships, and that's not the way people want to think of future. They need to know how it may look like better, and in this way they can only figure out how to get there. And we were talking about housing and about the village. And most recently, you have published a book along with the Gestalten that is called The Ideal City. And you, in this book, A SPACE10, you say that we humans share the same intrinsic needs for community, safety, inclusion, and wonder. And you also give fantastic, almost utopian, vision, or rather a recipe for the ideal city, which takes 5 ingredients: resourcefulness, accessibility, sharing, safety, and being a desirable city. This is a great vision. I'm a total fan of it. But then again, we have faced such visions before. We've been introduced by the visions of the ideal city. We had the recipe on the table. And how can you do that plausible? How can you do that probable? How can you do that preferable? That this will eventually take place. There is 53 cities being shown in the book. You have major architects all over the world saying what it needs to be done to have the ideal city. Why it isn't happening today?
It is. And I think that is also one of the motivations from the ideal city. It's maybe not happening in one city. I don't believe that there is one ideal city, or that we can sort of from SPACE10 create like a top-down, one-size-fits-all city. But what we wanted to do was actually to celebrate some of the people and projects that are creating real change for real people in real environments, to really show, instead of this sort of hypothetical, speculative, theoretical vision of what needs to be done with cities, rather really showcase, okay, all of these ingredients are actually out there right now, and you can basically cook the type of cities that you want using these ingredients. And you're right. I mean, the vision of the ideal city is nothing new as such, but I think it's interesting that when we do a research report at Space 10 around where would we like to, which direction would we like to go in when it comes to city development, then it becomes a coffee table book that is launched and sold worldwide. And I think that's a little bit my challenges with academia right now is that so many of the answers to inform the right decisions are already there. They are sitting on shelves in universities, and nobody is really engaging with it. So I think for us, it's not about always coming with something that is really, really new, but maybe more take a holistic and multidisciplinary approach and actually assemble some of those ideas out there in a way that engages people and sparks their imagination and provokes some thoughts. And here we can sort of do a full circle in terms of Gibson, where you could also say that the answers are already here. They're just not evenly distributed. And I think at least one of our roles at Space 10 is also to help connect people with at least the ideas and projects that we believe in, or that we would like to see more of.
I think that's the real definition of the innovation, that you simply join the dots of the sparks that are already there, of the signals of change, of people that have the knowledge, the boldness, and the execution of what may really change the future. Thank you for that, Simon. And now I have something that may surprise you. As for all of my guests, I have the last 5 questions that is called the Big Five. And the task is, I'm starting the sentence and you need to end it with your interpretation or with something that you would like to bring to our audience. So are you ready?
I'm so ready for this. What a wonderful surprise.
So, you said that there is no one ideal city, but I would like to finish the sentence. My ideal city is?
A city that is resourceful, accessible.
Oh no.
Do you want to know my favorite city?
Yes, you're personally, not a Simon from Space10, but you're a Simon Caspersen who has recently purchased a house in a village and says that my ideal city is?
My ideal city is a mix between Copenhagen, Mexico City, and Beirut.
Okay. I would like to visit you in such city once you find it or invent it. I'm in. Okay, and the other sentence, the question is, once the pandemic is over, I will...
Oh, this is like a drinking game.
Yeah, party hard. I guess we all feel like this. Never ever have I...
Never ever have I... Oh, never have I ever... answered a question so badly as this.
Okay. I will switch it to other one. If I could, I would
be in Mexico City right now.
Why is that?
I miss sitting on a sunny street corner, drinking coffee and watch people go by.
Okay, why can't you have that in Copenhagen?
I could for sure, but it's a different vibe, and it's also, yeah.
Okay. I love...
life.
Give me more. I mean, the short answers are just terrible for the host. It's like a torture. So give me more.
Sorry, I thought it was like quick stabs.
Yeah, it should be, but then you need to, develop a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. I love life, including... I love food, I love people, I love nature, collaborating with bright minds around creating something that I believe in and that gives me purpose and meaning. And a little shout out to Mom as well. I love you, Mom.
And a futurist is?
A futurist is some self-invented title that enables you to earn money speculating on things.
Oh. Okay. And
sorry, I think I'm breaking up a little bit, but I don't believe that anyone can predict the future. To be honest, of course there are trends. Of course there are weak signals, but I much more believe in shaping the future rather than predicting it. And I don't believe in one future. I believe in multiple futures. I think that the spectrum are so big, and it's completely impossible to foresee where we will head. I mean, just the pandemic we're in right now, what that means. What does it mean if we are not keeping below 2 degrees temperature rise? Like, the consequences are so complex, and I don't believe that we can really predict that future. But I do believe that everyone can be part of shaping it.
Okay, so you would exchange or change the word futurist for future designer?
Yeah, designer. I think that...
Just designer.
Yeah, designer's main role is to advance, basically. And then there are a lot of different types of designers, but
that's a great definition.
And then I think it's what kind of designer are you? And I think for SPACE10 at least, there has been so much buzz around like human-centric design for decades now, and I mean that hasn't really solved the challenges that we're in. Like we have continued to design for the individual, while as we collectively are under more pressure than ever. So I really believe in a people and planet-focused design approach. And I think that what we need now is not gadgets and items, but we need systemic change, which require designers that think about the big complicated systems and design solutions for that. Sorry, I have...
yeah, we need to fix that with a special sound effects, so everybody knows that design is the answer.
Exactly. Sorry, there's someone hammering in the background. Let me see if I can actually keep the connection going while being outside.
Yeah, being outside. Yeah, this is a great advantage. And this is the very last question I would like to ask you today. Why is that you moved from Copenhagen to the countryside?
I still have an apartment in Copenhagen, but I wanted sincerely to be closer to nature. So I don't have a garden in Copenhagen, so now I'm looking to do some gardening, see how that works out.
Yeah, and this is something that came up during the pandemic?
Yeah, for sure. I went to lockdown in Sweden, actually.
Okay. Simon, thank you for having you today. I hope that your construction works will continue and you will be able to have a really nice home with a garden and a gardening yard that will make your city, your village and your house resourceful, sustainable and livable. And thank you for sharing your thoughts on future and innovation.
It was great seeing you again, Agatha. Thank you for the invitation. Always lovely to chat with you. And sorry about the construction, everyone.
Great, thank you.
You are listening to the Futures Thinking podcast, where futures meet present, powered by Green Hat Innovation and 360inspiration.nl.